Chemistry, Class 8, Chapter 6a, Chemical Reactions, Part 1, Characteristics of Chemical Reactions by Zainab Bohari.
Hello dear friends, welcome to Chemistry Class 8. Today we are going to start the last chapter of our first semester syllabus, that is Chemical Reaction Part 1. Students, make a note. Remaining parts of this lesson will be considered in the next semester. In this semester, we will study only the first part. So let us move to the first part. Chemical reactions. As you know, in our surrounding, there are number of changes taking place. For example, ripening of fruits, rotting of leaves, and so many other chemical reactions. As you know, the chemical change is involved with interchanging of the different types of matters. The one matter reacts with other matters and chemical transformation takes place in it under the different conditions. Chemical reaction takes place means actually what happens, what takes place. Have a look on this video clip.
Here you can observe the movement of particles leads collision of the molecules and energy exchange takes place, which causes breaking and new formation of bonds in molecules.
A chemical reaction involves breaking down of the chemical bonds. What are the chemical bonds? So chemical bonds are nothing but the forces which are holding together the two atoms of the molecules. A chemical reaction involves breaking of chemical bonds between the atoms or groups of atoms of reacting substances and rearrangement of atoms making new bonds to form new substance with absorption of energy or without absorption of energy, and in return the energy is given out in the surrounding. This energy may be in the form of heat, light or sound or any other thing. When we burn methane in air, it reacts with oxygen in the air. The bonds are broken down of that of methane and oxygen molecules, and the rearrangement of atoms are taking place in which carbon dioxide and water vapor is formed. So from this example you might have understood what is meant by chemical bond. So here we define chemical bonds. Chemical bonds are nothing but the attractive forces between the atoms or molecules of the matters, which are holding these molecules or atoms together in formation of compounds. As we learned in the last chapter, chemical reactions are represented by chemical equation. Chemical equations are having two main parts, reactants and products. What are reactants? What are products? Let us define them. Reactants undergo chemical reaction and gives products. For example, sodium hydroxide when combines with hydrochloric acid, the moving molecules which has kinetic energy gets collide with each other and bond between them breaks down and the new bonds form to make new arrangement of the atoms, and this gives new substances formed as a result of chemical reaction. So here in this reaction, sodium chloride and water is formed. Here hydrochloric acid and sodium hydroxide are reactants. On the other hand, water and sodium chloride, which is a salt, are products. Dear students, always remember, when the chemical reactions are taking place, law of conservation of matter must be followed. It means the number of atoms in the reactant side are always equal to number of atoms in the product side. Let us study some basic characteristics of chemical reactions. Here, the list of characteristics of chemical reactions are given. During the chemical reaction, heat may get evolved. During the chemical reaction, effervescence takes place, or color of reactant get changed. They may form precipitation. States of reactants may get changed during the chemical reaction to form new products. There may be change in energy observed. So let us study each of the characteristics one by one. So here we go with the first characteristic, formation of effervescence. What is meant by effervescence? Effervescence is nothing but formation of gas during the chemical reaction in the form of air bubble inside the liquids. During chemical reaction is called as effervescence. Here, when reactants are in the liquid form, in the product formation, gas may form in the form of bubbles. Here are few examples of the chemical reactions which are producing effervescence. When the zinc, which is in the solid form, is allowed to react with any acid, here we take hydrochloric acid or sulfuric acid. In both the cases, the reaction takes place and hydrogen gas is evolved in the form of first appearing bubbles. Another example, when potassium chlorate is heated at a very high temperature in presence of the catalyst, the chemical reaction takes place and bonds gets broken down to give potassium chloride and oxygen gas. Here we go with the second characteristics of the chemical reaction. Color change. Let us demonstrate a practical to learn in the better manner how color gets changed during the chemical reaction. So dear friends, you have seen when iron nail is kept in the copper sulfate, the chemical reaction takes place between the iron atoms and copper sulfate, which gives rise the copper and iron sulfate. Iron sulfate here we can see light green in color, while copper residues are getting settled down at the bottom. We can see the reddish brownish particles of copper in the test tube. Second example, when copper sulfate reacts with hydrogen sulfide gas, copper sulfide is formed. Sulfuric acid is given out. In the sulfuric acid solution, you can see the blacky colored particle of copper sulfide. One more example, lead nitrate when is heated strongly on Bunsen burner, we can see the chemical reaction takes place and lead nitrate gets decomposed to form nitrogen dioxide and oxygen. Lead oxide is light yellow colored and you can see reddish brown color fumes of nitrogen dioxide are rising up in the test tube. Formation of precipitation. Precipitation means what? Precipitation is nothing but the process in which during the chemical reaction the two substances react together to give insoluble solid particles. These solid particles are called as precipitates and the process is nothing but precipitation. Let us study formation of precipitate in the chemical reaction with practical demonstration. When aqueous solution of silver nitrate and sodium chloride reacts with each other, we can see white color PPT is formed, which is of silver chloride. Second example, when iron sulfate reacts with sodium hydroxide, chemical reaction takes place and precipitate forms of ferrous hydroxide, which is dull pale green in color, with sodium sulfate solution. Barium chloride when reacts with sulfuric acid, chemical reaction takes place and white colored precipitate form of barium sulfate and hydrochloric acid solution. Next is change in state. In many chemical reactions, state of the matter gets changed. Means when solid and liquids or solid and gases or gases and liquids or any gases and solids reacts and in return different state of matters are formed. You can see in all above discussed examples the change in state also take place during the chemical reaction. Hydrogen sulfide gas reacts with chlorine gas and after chemical reaction the product form is hydrogen chloride fumes which are in the form of gas and yellow solid sulfur particles are formed. Next is change in energy. During the chemical reaction, energy is either taken in from the surrounding or it is given out in the surrounding. So this is a very much important characteristic of chemical reactions. Let us see some practical examples during the chemical reaction how energy gets evolved or how energy gets absorbed. Okay dear friends, I hope you learned all the characteristics and chemical reactions well.